Hello guys. So Nemesio Osigwera 70 is dead and Mexico is on fire. Now somebody might ask, who then is Nemesio Osigwera 70? His name is El Mencho, and that is the name that I believe you know. Currently, Mexico is under fire. 2,000 tourists are trapped inside Mexico City and nobody is stepping out. Schools are currently closed down, hospitals are closed down. There is a high alert with regards to security, all because one man is dead and then the country is on fire. So, who is this El Mencho? Now, let me take you back. El Mencho was born in 1966 to a very poor farming background. His parents were actually peasant farmers, and then he actually did grow in poverty. He was really poor, a very humble background. But then within the 1980s, he moved to California to find greener pastures through an illegal immigration process. And then, if you've been to Mexico before, you know that most of them actually does migrate to the USA using illegal routes. And that is what El Mencho did. Now, when he got to the US in 1992, he was caught up for drug trafficking. He was working as a construction worker whilst in the USA, but then he was into drug trafficking, specifically um, trafficking of heroin. So in 1992, he was caught for trafficking heroin, and then thus became a big issue for him, whereby he was jailed for 3 years. El Mencho went to prison for 3 years. Now, after the 3 years, he relocated back to Mexico in 1999. So when he came, he started a small drug cartel business, and then people did not actually take him serious. There are a lot of street hawkers, people who are hawking drugs on the streets of Mexico, and then it's just normal. The average young man would be hawking cocaine, heroin, might fentanyl might be in any of these things, and then it's actually normal because it looks like that is the only thing that most of them actually does have to do within the space that they find themselves into. So he started a small drug cartelling business, and people were not actually taking notice of him. But then, fast forward, in 2010, he established the CJ This is what actually brought him to fame. That is the Julicio New Generation Cartel. Now, this cartel began its activities, and when they began its activities, within a very short time, they moved to about 4 different states, and then they started taking dominance of the streets. They started rivaling gang groups, and then they were actually making strides on the streets and taking whole cities for themselves. Now, the major time people actually started taking notice of El Mencho and then the CJNJ was in 2015 when he shot down a helicopter owned by the military. Listen, you might not understand the true intent and the true meaning of this thing. A cartel boss went head on head and head to head with the military. He shot down the military helicopter using a rocket launcher. So people actually did start taking notice of El Mencho. Now, his unit was quite different from that of El Chapo. Why? Because he actually practiced it in a form of military style. He had leaders, he had squadron leaders, he had commanders, he had people in charge of every unit. Now, in short, CJNJ was not just a cartel, but then it was an organized unit. By 2025, we are talking about almost 20,000 members of the cartel being known. So statistically, it is proven that the cartel was between 15,000 to 20,000. That is a whole army. So he commanded a whole army, and then all these men were solely sewn into loyalty. It was difficult to trace El Mencho. He was actually a ghost. The difference between El Mencho and El Chapo was that El Chapo was a bit flamboyant. He would throw parties here and there. He liked to drive in Ferraris. He liked to drive in Lamborghinis and then look good. But then El Mencho was simply a ghost who doesn't drive these cars, who was not known to anyone, and since 2015 didn't take any picture. There's no known picture of him from 2015 till date. Just imagine, from 2015 till date, there was no single picture of him. So he was very careful. He had a way of operating which was so very different from his predecessors. Why? Because he modeled his style after the downfall of most of his predecessors. One thing about cartelling is you need to be smart to be a cartel boss. And one thing about Al Mentor was that he wouldn't sleep at a place for 2 different occasions. So nobody knew where he would be lodging for the night. You understand? He owned 7 different ranches, but then would move in between places and sleep in different locations, which was known to few of his solid men. Nobody knew where he would be sleeping at a point in time. This made him almost impossible to arrest, and his influence was throughout Mexico. The main drugs that he was actually into was cocaine, fentanyl, and then also heroin. All these were drugs that he was trafficking. And it got to a point in time that he was trafficking almost 60% of drug carteling businesses in the United States. That is why he became a subject of interest for the United States government. Now, a bounty of $15 million was placed on his head that anybody that would be able to give any meaningful um, details or any meaningful text for his arrest was going to be entitled to $50 billion. But then he evaded arrest all these years, only for him to be arrested on the 22nd of February 2026. So somebody might then ask, what actually happened? Nemesio Osigwera 70, El Mencho, was one careful man, and then what really happened that led to his arrest? Activities of his girlfriend became known to the authorities, to the security intelligence of Mexico and the United States. Somebody within the details of his girlfriend actually leaked information to the Mexican government. Like all great men, most of them will fall because of a woman. So the person within the details of the girlfriend leaked information that the girlfriend was going to visit El Mencho at a certain point in time. The intelligence took notice and then watched the activities of this girlfriend. And after the girlfriend had exited, the security moved in. Gunshot, gunfire. Mexican cartel will never go down. There's no cartel that will go down without a gunfire. But then the security overpowered him and then his people. He actually did run into the woods with two of his bodyguards. Now, inside the woods, he was shot and then wounded. Two of his bodyguards were also wounded. So they were airlifted to the hospital. As they were being airlifted to the hospital, he died inside the plane. So the very ways through which he was able to be identified was a tip off from the security details of the girlfriend. So the intelligence community was able to track him using the details of his girlfriend. So, like I said, all great men eventually fall because of women. Now, what does it mean for Mexico? When a drug cartel boss dies, there is one thing that happens. They do not mourn, but then there's revenge. Now, for El Mencho's group, it looks like they had a pre-prepared action plan that this is what happened when the boss dies. So, roads were blocked. People started shooting, they started setting places on fire. So far, almost 100 people are dead. Trust me, yes, 100 people are dead with over 400 injured. And tourists who went to have fun have actually been trapped inside the city. So the military has also moved in, strengthened and beefed up military security. Intelligence community is on high alert, but trust you me, this fight is not ending anytime soon. Now, what does it actually mean? What it means is that people are now trying to take power in the CJNJ group. People are actually trying to take power in the CJNJ group because there's a power vacuum. And as it stands, there are about 4 generals that are trying to take power within the CJNJ. Per reports, there are about 4 generals who are trying to take power in the CJNJ. But we'll bring to you more information about that in our next video. But for now, El Mencho is dead. Other rival cartels have also taken to the streets trying to establish dominance. The biggest one of them is the Sinaloa cartel, which was owned by El Chapo. These are their fiercest rivals. There's been a lot of shootouts, a lot of street fights on the streets of Mexico between El Mencho's drug cartel and the Sinaloa's cartel. Now that El Mencho is dead, Sinaloa's cartel would want to establish their dominance because they've seen that the head of the mob is actually not there. The head of the cartel is dead. And because of that, they know and they are aware that there will be struggle for power. Quickly, they've moved in to take dominance on the streets. This is also leading to the violence that we are seeing in Mexico. Now, currently, the military is all over, helicopters flying, schools are currently being shut down, hospitals are on high alert, and Mexico is just not a safe place, all because of the death of one single man, El Mencho. Now, what do we make of the story? Another great man has passed on, all because of activities with a woman. Imagine if he hadn't moved out and moved in with a woman. He would possibly might still have been alive. These are lessons that we need to learn. A general who has been able to establish one of the widest known networks in mankind history died because of a woman. So, at the height of the El Mencho's drug cartel business, it is known that over 20 to 30 billion annual revenue in dollars was generated by this cartel. Yes, they actually did generate 20 to 30 billion dollars, and their military equipments were and their security equipments were military grades. So in essence, they could go head to toe and head on head with any security group because they possess all the equipment that other proper militaries also had. So they were able to go head on head with these militaries. Now, there's one thing somebody's also asking, people are asking, so who actually did give the anonymous information? This is going to stay confidential, believe me, because when it comes to light, when it is known, he will die, his family will die, his entire generation, everybody will be burnt alive, even people in his city will be killed. Because when you go in and then you run out on a cartel boss, you will not live, neither would any generation of yours live, including his dogs, his cats, his everything that he owns, including his livestock. So this is a well-kept secret by the intelligence community. So like I said, our mentor is dead. And what does it mean for Mexico? We live to see as we watch unfolding issues and unfolding businesses in the coming days. This has been the OWURA'S perspective. Please kindly like, share, subscribe, leave your comment so that YouTube can recommend our videos for other people. If you did enjoy this video, kindly leave it in the comment section. As our mentor is dead, what does it mean? This has been my perspective. Leave your perspective in the comment section. Thank you for watching.